Airports and railway and bus stations have shut down in Germany's most disruptive strike action in 30 years. Members of two of the biggest trade unions have walked off the job for 24 hours. They're demanding higher wages in the transport sector to combat the rising cost of living. And for more, I'm joined now by our reporters, Julia Saudelli at Berlin Central Station and Emily Gordine at Frankfurt Airport. Emily, let's start with you. Frankfurt Airport is one of Europe's main aviation hubs, but it looks like there's not much going on there today, is there?
No, I mean, we're standing in the departure hall of Frankfurt Airport and it is pretty deserted, I must admit. If you look behind me onto the departure board, every single flight has been cancelled. Ironically, you'll see more above all of these cancellations. In total, we've had over 1,000 flights that have been cancelled. That's going to affect over hundreds of thousands of travellers. Even if you just wanted to change here, that won't be possible today. We've spoken to a few travellers, and one story in particular really struck me. We were talking to an elderly man. He arrived here last night from Egypt and has been stranded here ever since. So he's been waiting here for hours overnight, and is now he's waiting to be picked up from friends and family. I mean, that is just incredible. And other travellers that we've been talking to say they've been taking to smaller regional airports, from which they've been taking to Frankfurt Airport by bus, adding another 5 to 6 hours in travel time. But of course, you know, this is not for nothing. We just earlier saw a strike motion sort of go through the airport here. Workers are striking here for higher wages amid a rising cost of living crisis. And of course, these strikes are, a way to put pressure on the ongoing negotiations to deal with the inflation and the rising cost of living, really.
Julia, you're at Berlin's deserted Central Station. Tell us more about what's behind this strike. What exactly are unions asking for?
Yes, as Emily said, it's all about salary negotiations to help workers of the public transport sector better deal with the effects of inflation Germany has experienced in this past year since Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, its highest levels of inflation in the post-war period. And so unions, two of the biggest unions in Germany, have come together and called for this strike today to put pressure on negotiators to increase salaries. They are asking, depending on which union, for a salary increase between 10 and 12%. And we've seen the inflation levels especially hitting the cost of energy and the cost of food. People seeing that when they have to pay their bills, when they have to go shopping at the supermarket, inflation rates up to around 20% for both energy and food. And the fact that the country has pretty much come to a standstill today in terms of transport shows how much power unions still have in Germany, also compared to other European countries, and that they have negotiating power with the state and the local authorities in trying to get these salary increases.
Now, the cost of living is rising everywhere, and Emily, Germany is not the only country seeing these kinds of walkouts lately, is it?
No, not at all. I mean, in the UK alone, we've also seen several walkouts, several strikes, whether it's teachers, barristers in the healthcare sector. When it comes to the railway workers, they've also been striking repeatedly. Heathrow Airport is looking at strikes over the Easter holiday. And then, I mean, if you look at France, that country has been swept by strikes and mass demonstrations amid President Macron's decision to push through an unpopular bill to raise the retirement age in the country. So that'll obviously disrupt movement as well. And then in Spain, we've also seen strikes at the airports. I think in March it was that security workers have been striking on Tuesdays. So strikes all over Europe, which really just reflects the problem with inflation across Europe. You know, this is not just a German problem. This is a problem that all European countries are facing, and workers are standing up for their rights and are just saying, you know, the cost of living is rising, and so wages need to rise as well.
It's a problem, as you say there, a problem that many people can relate to. Julia, does this protest, this strike, have public support in Germany?
Well, we know that the unions believe that they have public support in terms of this strike. Obviously, people know, even though they can't take the train today, they can't fly today, that it is because of this cost of living crisis, and most people in Germany are feeling it. But we will definitely also try to talk to some people here today and try to hear what people affected by the strike actually think about the motives behind the strike.
If anybody comes by, because it looks pretty empty there. But thank you for the time being, Julia Saudelli in Berlin and Emily Gordine in Frankfurt.
Let's bring in Clemens Fuest, president of the IFO Institute of Economic Research now. Clemens, good to see you. How big of an economic impact will this strike have?
Well, I think this one-day strike will have a very limited impact. There will be some disruptions and some production losses, but the strike was announced beforehand. So companies could adjust to this. The impact will be limited. The key question is, will there be a longer strike later in this negotiation, or will there be a settlement without further strikes? If there was a longer strike, that would have a severe impact on the economy, and that would dampen the recovery.
Now, Clemens, public spending is under strain in Germany right now. How likely are employers to bow to those worker demands?
Well, as always, I think there will be some kind of compromise. I think the employers will give in to some extent, but of course there are limits to this. So I would expect something in the order of 7% maybe. So a wage increase which is still below inflation, but one which will give some relief to private households, to the employees.
Now, if we look at the bigger picture, your institute has a new business climate survey out today. What stands out to you?
Well, the news is relatively good. We see an improvement in the mood. We also see this pessimism we had in the past month receding. So companies are more optimistic. This is because energy prices are coming down, and also because the supply bottlenecks we had in the past years are easing somewhat, and that helps industry. So overall, it's good news. The construction sector is an exception. There we have problems, high interest rates, high prices, but the rest of the economy is recovering.
And what sectors in particular are feeling optimistic right now, Clemens?
Well, it's in particular manufacturing because of the improvements in supply bottlenecks. But what we also see is an across-the-board improvement in the service sector, including the travel sector, hotels, restaurants. So sectors that were hit by the pandemic, they are optimistic for the coming year.
OK, so some good news there. Clemens Fuest, president of the IFO Institute, thank you so much.
Thank you.